From ABC News, World News Sunday. Substituting for Forrest Sawyer, here's Carol Simpson.
Good evening. President Bush returned to Washington this evening, ending his annual quail hunting holiday in Beeville, Texas. Tomorrow, the president departs on a bigger expedition with his sights set on much bigger game. He's heading for the Far East. He's hoping to boost American trade prospects and in turn boost the economy and in turn boost his prospects for re-election. Here's ABC White House correspondent Ann Compton.
President Bush is trading in the small corporate jet he used over the weekend for a jumbo jet to make his longest and most controversial trip outside the United States. Because the economy at home remains comatose, critics believe they forced the president into putting trade and job creation at the top of the trip's agenda.
We understand the president has to travel, and we feel that we've succeeded in refocusing his purpose in making his top priority the American domestic economy and the creation of, as he now says, jobs, jobs, jobs.
Today, Commerce Secretary Mosbacher defended the trip, saying President Bush always intended to play the role of trade ambassador.
By going to Japan, we can create more jobs in the U.S. than by sitting here in the Oval Office.
In fact, President Bush will visit 4 trading partners. In Australia, the focus will be competition to sell farm products on the world market. In Asia, he starts in Singapore, which is fast becoming the new Hong Kong as a free market crossroads. In Korea, American corporate CEOs traveling with the president will try to negotiate with their Korean counterparts. And in Japan, the American Big Three automakers will push for more American imports, while President Bush visits Kodak Laboratories and the first Toys R Us store built in Japan.
And most important, though, on this trip, we're going to be talking about breaking open markets that shut out American products, American business, and in the process deny us the opportunity to create more good American jobs. Those countries must open their markets to American products.
President Bush has been careful not to promise more than he can deliver in the way of trade victories. But if he comes home with an empty briefcase, it may be difficult to convince American workers this trip was a domestic success. Ann Compton, ABC News, the White House.
The workers who are going to need the most convincing are the ones who build American cars. And the people who sell those cars have an added frustration. They say no matter how much they improve their product, an old and no longer deserved reputation still haunts them. Here's Steve Shepard.
Japanese car makers are kicking up their heels at Washington's International Auto Show this weekend. And why not? Japanese manufacturers now make 1 out of every 3 new cars sold in America. U.S. automakers are piling up record losses.
It's as bad as I've ever seen it since I've been in the business. People are not even coming in. They're not even thinking about coming into a store to buy a car.
What really troubles American dealers today is their conviction that after years of playing catch-up with Japan, they now have a good product to sell at a good price.
We have the product now, but we have a mental thing with our consumer. Our consumer is thinking that Japanese is better, and that's baloney.
GM, Ford, and Chrysler are flooding the market with new models that are getting good reviews from critics and attracting some consumer interest.
I think the product they've got out now has come a long way within the last 5 to 6 years.
Even so, about the only new U.S. model with sizzling sales is the Humvee, the multi-purpose U.S. military vehicle now being made in a $40,000 limited edition civilian version. But while the Humvee helped win Desert Storm, it is not likely to win back the millions of U.S. customers who now prefer Japanese cars. Customers who are reluctant to buy today's much improved American models. That spells more woes for Detroit automakers. They believe that unless President Bush can somehow curb the Japanese, the U.S. auto industry will continue its painful decline. Steve Shepard, ABC News, Washington.
Officials in New York City today were trying to figure out what went wrong last night. How a star-studded charity basketball game at a college gymnasium turned into a nightmare that left 8 people dead and at least 28 injured. An already beyond capacity crowd had filled the gym to watch some of the nation's top rap stars play basketball to benefit AIDS education. But several hundred people outside surged the glass doors in a human stampede. The victims were trampled and suffocated. A full investigation is underway. Coming up, the ceasefire fails in what used to be Soviet Georgia. And later in this broadcast, the thrills and chills that had sports fans tuning in during 1991, and why even arson in Central Florida can't put Father Pittman and his congregation out of business.
World News Sunday, brought to you by the Discover Card.
So you just got a cash advance, did you? Too bad you used an ordinary credit card. Because you could be carrying some very heavy interest charges. Why not carry the Discover Card? Just pay your full monthly balance and a small transaction fee, and we'll forget the interest. Which means our money comes with no strings attached. It pays to Discover.
80% of nation on flu alert. Severe flu season underway. What will you do? Doctors recommend Theraflu, hot liquid medicine that works fast. Theraflu, strong therapy for flu symptoms.
The glorious freshness of mint. Nobody knows it better than Polident. That's why there's a splash of mint in every Polident tablet to leave your dentures feeling gloriously clean and fresh. Get super strength Polident with a splash of mint.
Yesterday, a ceasefire was announced to end a week of fighting, but today the opposing forces in what used to be Soviet Georgia were at war once again, with no resolution in sight. The latest from ABC's Sheila Cast in Tbilisi.
By noon, this was what was left of a ceasefire called by various groups opposed to President Gamsakhourdia. Fires had spread to several spots in Tbilisi. Efforts to control them were sometimes hampered by sniper fire. Flames gutted the rebel headquarters in the Tbilisi hotel, but they kept shooting. The peace talks, called yesterday by opposition factions, fizzled. No one there was speaking for the embattled president, and the talks ended in another call for him to resign. Rebels gloated that some armed factions had deserted Gamsakhourdia. But that was not apparent today at his headquarters in the Parliament building. It was bristling with weapons. A top aide insisted Gamsakhourdia's force is as strong as ever.
There were some defections from this side to that side and from that side to this side, but not the high levels, not the highest levels.
The conflict affects many more than the several hundred men fighting for and against President Gamsakhourdia.
There are the thousands who continue to throng demonstrations for the president or for his opponents. There are the scores of families who mourn their dead as the death toll has risen past 50. And there are dozens of residents who have evacuated their homes in fear that the struggle will reach even farther. Sheila Cast, ABC News, Tbilisi, Georgia.
Russia's President Boris Yeltsin went on national TV today with his year-end address. He congratulated his countrymen on avoiding the kind of violence that's going on in Georgia. But he also warned them that even in Russia, things are going to get worse before they get better. More from ABC's Jim Laurie.
It was Boris Yeltsin's attempt to prepare Russians for a difficult year ahead. The freeing of prices next Thursday will be painful and unpopular, but said Yeltsin, there is no way out. The move, which will see food prices jump at least 3 times, will be accompanied, Yeltsin said, by other radical changes. Privatization of most consumer industries, which should boost competition and production. The breakup of collective farms, and sharp cuts in military spending. Yeltsin spoke on the eve of a potentially troubled meeting between Russia and other members of the new Commonwealth. Meetings last week among Commonwealth military commanders failed to resolve differences over what to do about the old Soviet army. Ukraine wants direct control over all conventional forces on Ukrainian soil. Russia wants a unified command. Ukraine also objects to Yeltsin imposing economic reforms in Russia without coordinating them with Ukraine. So Boris Yeltsin faces double challenges in the week ahead, pushing through his price reforms without a major popular backlash and keeping peace with his neighbors in the 3-week-old Commonwealth. With serious splits on both economic and military policies, it's unlikely he'll keep everybody happy. Jim Laurie, ABC News, Moscow.
In a moment, the Texas floods menacing rich and poor alike.
Rough, tight, dry skin? That stops with Curel. When you apply Curel regularly, you'll feel its fast-absorbing rehydration formula take over. First, it seals in the healing moisturizers. Then the soothing Curel therapy rehydrates your dry skin. First it seals, then it heals. There's a clear line between other moisturizing formulas and Curel's rehydration formula. Curel for dry skin. First it seals, then it heals.
Imagine you, a millionaire, at American Family. Lots of all new $1 million prizes. And the biggest prize of all, $10 million. It's like entering dozens of sweepstakes with a single entry. You get all new chances to get really rich, even super rich. You can win $10 million next month. You may have the winning number right now in the only sweepstakes with my picture. Last chance to enter before I announce the winning number. Hurry.
Come on, Daddy. No, you go ahead, honey. My throat really hurts.
When your throat is sore and it's feeling raw, try Sucrets. Sucrets wraps your throat in soothing relief.
Much better.
Only Sucrets has the medicine diclonine to soothe minor sore throat pain for long-lasting relief.
How about a bite to eat?
Oh, not with this sore throat.
When your throat's in pain, feel better again. Try Sucrets and wrap your throat in soothing relief.
That does feel better.
Sucrets wraps your throat in soothing relief.
Everyone has a dream, a vision deep inside.
When I decide to follow up on an investing idea, I need a broker who's ready when I am.
We make it easier to follow your own lead.
I can call Schwab at any hour, nights or weekends, get the information I need, even place an order to trade.
Always there to give you just the help you need.
Help yourself at Schwab today.
Flooding caused by record rainfall has claimed 17 lives and caused untold damage in Texas over the past 11 days. And in low-lying areas around Houston, officials say the worst is yet to come. They expect the Brazos River to overflow its banks by late tonight, so they're urging hundreds of people to evacuate. And as Mike Von Fremd reports, the Texas floodwaters have played no favorites.
From the $1 million mansions on Lake Travis near Austin to the public housing projects outside Dallas, Texans, both wealthy and poor, are wet and angry.
Everything we got is down there. I'm so mad, I don't know what to do.
The residents of the Rochester Park housing projects are mad as they mop up for the fourth time in 2 years because the city of Dallas still has not completed a promised levee.
I mean, this is sickening, you know. This is one of the projects that I don't think that should ever have to happen. You know, I don't think that we have to go through this every time.
It is going to be some time before anyone living on affluent Blue Cat Lane outside Austin can even think about mopping up. This is Bill Kopech's dream house.
I really feel like I'm going to have to gut the inside and start over.
Many here blame engineers who control the dam on Lake Travis for not releasing enough water.
We feel like we were betrayed and lied to. The Lower Colorado River Authority just flat lied to us.
While the River Authority says it regrets the damage caused upstream, engineers point out that this dam was built here 50 years ago for the purpose of saving Austin from a flood just like this. So the city below the dam was saved and the lake homes were not. But most say they will be back.
Yes, I'll rebuild because that's our fun place.
And with the help of federal aid, most living in the projects intend to move back into their only place. But the Texas floods of '91 have shown that whether you live on the floodplain by necessity or choice, Mother Nature does not discriminate. Mike Von Fremd, ABC News, Austin.
In Britain, scientists say a drug that has been used to treat herpes and shingles may be useful in treating patients with AIDS. The drug, acyclovir, was used in conjunction with AZT and administered to 300 AIDS patients. In a year's time, the death rate was cut in half. The scientists caution that acyclovir is not a cure, but they say it may prolong life. Spiraling healthcare costs are of increasing concern to all Americans, but most of all to the 35 million Americans who, working or not, have no medical insurance. A new study indicates that their numbers are going to grow larger and their plight is going to grow worse. ABC's Bettina Gregory reports.
Carolyn Dunaway earns $19,000 a year, but she does not have medical insurance. One day on the way to work, she stepped in a pothole.
it was excruciating because I didn't have any insurance or anything. I just went to bed and I put my knee up and I started alternating, ice and heat and all the stuff you're supposed to do.
Several weeks later, she had her leg x-rayed at a free clinic. It was broken. Permanent damage had already been done. Carolyn Dunaway is an example of what one public interest group calls the medically indigent. In an analysis of new government data, the Public Citizen Health Research Group says medical expenses are out of control. Of all the goods and services purchased in the U.S. this year, 13% went for health care. By 1997, health care will consume 20% of GNP, $1 out of every $5. The result? This analysis projects millions more Americans will be pushed into the ranks of the medically uninsured.
There's a vicious link between inability to afford health insurance, middle-class medical indigency, and becoming sicker because you can't go to the doctor. And as a result of becoming sicker, becoming poor because you can't work.
Right now, about 14% of Americans have no medical insurance. This public interest group warns that number will skyrocket unless national health insurance is enacted, and that millions of middle-class Americans will go without medical care, just like Carolyn Dunaway. Bettina Gregory, ABC News, Washington.
When we return, the agonies and ecstasies that rocked the world of sports in 1991.
Freeden's the one. Only one gum passes the test when you've got dental work, and that's Freedent. Freedent won't stick to your dental work, so you can be confident chewing it. And because it also moistens your mouth and freshens your breath, Freedent's in a class by itself.
Freedent's the one that took the stick out of gum, and Freedent moistens your mouth. Yeah, moistens your mouth and freshens your breath while you chew.
Non-stick Freedent moistens your mouth and freshens your breath.
The leading gourmet coffee gets its flavor from just one kind of coffee bean. So, this is them. Folgers Gourmet Supreme starts with that same Colombian bean for dark, rich body, but then blends in Guatemalan beans for strength, Costa Rican beans for savoriness, and Mexican beans for mellowness. So, this is them, this is us. Folgers Gourmet Supreme, the 4-bean coffee.
Kids love my ice cream. Had to take their word for it. Meet the ice cream man who couldn't eat ice cream. So you want 2 scoops or 1 scoop? Funny, huh? Same trouble digesting milk, cheese. Made my stomach nuts. Anyway, that was before dairies. I just chew some tablets and eat what I want. That's opened up a whole new world for me. How's it taste? Good?
Along with the glaciers, a string quartet. There are eagles and old world antiques. Midnight Sun, Rosenthal china, the finest service, and the spouting of whales. Surely there is no land on earth more magnificent and wild than Alaska, and no way more civilized to see it than aboard the ships of Holland America, the world's best cruise line.
It matters where you get your news.
Now.
From the world headquarters of ABC News overnight. Watch ABC's World News now, beginning January 6th.
Time now for sports. Ray Gendolf left us with a few thoughts about the year in sports before he left on vacation. And John Snyder is standing by in New York with a look at what's going on in sports today. John?
Thank you, Carol. Just 2 years removed from a record of 1-15, the Dallas Cowboys today won their first playoff game in 9 years, a 4-point win in Chicago. Emmitt Smith, the NFL's leading rusher, scored a touchdown. He also rushed for 105 yards, but it was the Dallas defense that keyed the win this afternoon. 3 times Chicago got inside the 10-yard line, but all 3 times Chicago came away with no points. In college football, the Independence Bowl, Shreveport, Louisiana, won by Georgia by 9 points over Arkansas. Georgia's freshman quarterback Eric Zier completed 18 passes, this one 27 yards to Andre Hastings for an early touchdown. With the win, Georgia ended the season at 9-3. The year is almost over. In sports, it was a year in which the usual highlights were tempered by stories that showed again a game should never be mistaken for things much more important. Here's Ray Gandolf.
Ideally, sports are pure joy, an escape from real life. They never are, of course. Real life intrudes. And in 1991, Real life really muted the cheers and shattered the images.
Take basketball. Duke became the surprise NCAA champions after a stunning upset of Nevada, Las Vegas in the semifinals. And the Chicago Bulls, led by the incomparable Michael Jordan, won their first NBA title. But then Magic Johnson, probably the best all-round player in the history of the game, announced that he was infected with the AIDS virus and retired to devote what's left of his life to fighting the disease. In football, the Giants beat Buffalo in one of the most exciting Super Bowl games ever played, when a field goal try by Scott Norwood sailed wide and left the Bills 1 point short. But that luster began dimming the very next day when Red Grange, the last surviving hero of the golden age of sport, died. Last summer, Paul Brown died, taking with him my vote as the most creative force in the history of football. Last month, reality took hold of Mike Utley, the Detroit tackle, and put him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Baseball had a good year. The ancient and honorable Nolan Ryan pitched the 7th no-hitter of his matchless career. Rickey Henderson became the best base stealer of all time. And in a barn burner of a World Series, Minnesota beat Atlanta 1-0 in the 10th inning of the 7th game. But the Braves' Otis Nixon did not play in that series. He was suspended for drug abuse. And Steve Howe, the Yankee pitcher, has been arrested on a cocaine charge and could face the 7th suspension of his career. Mercy. In hockey, the Pittsburgh Penguins won the Stanley Cup for the first time ever. 6 months later, their coach, Bob Johnson, was dead of a brain tumor. In two sports, the big news was bad news. Former heavyweight champion Mike Tyson was indicted for rape, scheduled for trial next month. And Bill Shoemaker, the best jockey who ever rode a horse, remains paralyzed after running his car off the road last spring. But in some sports, the cheers were not muted. There was the marvelous run by Jimmy Connors at the U.S. Open. And the 3 Grand Slam tournaments won by Monica Seles, although eyebrows were raised when she chose not to enter Wimbledon. At the World Track and Field Championships, Carl Lewis broke the world record in the 100-meter sprint. And Mike Powell broke Bob Beeman's 23-year-old long jump record by 2 full inches. Rookie John Daly, the consistent author of 300-yard drives, won the PGA tournament and brought a much-needed charge of adrenaline and charisma to the golf tour. Meg Mallon, with a smile as big as an umbrella, won the LPGA championship and the U.S. Women's Open back-to-back. And Pat Bradley, with 3 wins in September, became the first woman to earn $4 million and the 12th to qualify for the LPGA Hall of Fame. And 15-year-old Kim Zmeskal, defying gravity, logic, and common sense, became the first American woman to win an all-around gold medal at the World Gymnastics Championships.
Despite moments like this, despite all the images that will stay with us always, maybe sports isn't meant to be pure joy, isn't meant to be an escape from life. Maybe sports is real life. Ray Gandolf, ABC News.
Ray will be back in this seat next week. Carol Simpson returns in just a moment.
Think about your daydreams, what you would do if you won $1 million out of the blue. Miracles can happen for you. Publishers Clearinghouse, the house where dreams come true.
Hurry to Red Lobster for the Shrimp Feast. Start with shrimp cocktail, followed by sizzling shrimp scampi, succulent grilled shrimp, and large butterflied shrimp. What a meal. Now you know why it's called the Shrimp Feast, only at Red Lobster.
It's Red Lobster's lunch special. For a short time, get shrimp and chicken for just $3.99. Golden fried shrimp and grilled chicken breast with salad and baked potato, only $3.99. Now every day at Red Lobster for lunch.
This week, the Good Morning America Law Review, a look back at the cases that crowded the courts in '91. Also, new schemes for catching America's worst drivers on Good Morning America this week.
Finally tonight, arson has destroyed more than 50 churches in north central Florida in the past 20 months. But as Jed Duval explains, even a devastating fire hasn't stopped one Gainesville congregation from carrying on.
It is Sunday morning and time for church. The pastor leads the choir down the street in the morning sunlight. David Pittman, the minister, and the choir of Holy Trinity Episcopal Church file into the First Methodist Church.
Let us pray. We believe in the Holy Spirit.
The Episcopalians are in a Methodist church because 11 months ago, their own church 2 blocks away was destroyed. As the parishioners watched Holy Trinity burn that afternoon, the Methodists walked over and invited them to make use of their church. So did everybody else in town.
Roman Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist, Pentecostal, Church of God, the Jewish synagogue, all of them.
They wrote, they called?
Oh, sure.
They all said pretty much the same thing?
Pretty much.
Come here anytime.
Sure.
The fire, apparently deliberate, left only the walls of the 84-year-old building. Jerry Langford has been in the choir for 38 years.
Bricks and mortar and objects mean a lot to worship. I think people underestimate how much that means to them. And they'll go on
the Episcopals squeeze their service between 2 of the Methodists. And they squeeze into the pews, not spaced for the kneeling that is prevalent in their church. Thus, they lean or stand to pray. The Methodist minister is Jim Martin.
The whole attitude of neighbor helping neighbor, that strikes to the heart of Christianity and to what Christmas is all about.
And on a Sunday night, in come the children, each with a bell, to make all the noise they wish. And sing the Christmas songs in this place where the neighbors make them feel welcome. Jed Duval, ABC News, Gainesville, Florida.
And that's World News Sunday. I'm Carol Simpson. For all of us at ABC News, good night and Happy New Year.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Sunday, Kirk Douglas, Laurence Olivier, Gene Simmons, and Tony Curtis in Stanley Kubrick's restored classic with footage never seen on television, Spartacus Sunday.
Ever notice how tough it can be to use some long-distance charge cards?
Sorry, that is not a valid number.
Dial again. This is a recording.
Sorry, you hit the keys too hard. Dial again.
With South Central Bell's charge card, your phone number plus 4 digits can charge from virtually any phone anywhere in the country with no special procedures, no...
Sorry, that is a valid number, but you used the wrong finger. Hold up your finger. That's the wrong finger. Use the right finger. This is a recording.
Make your life a touch easier. Call for your South Central Bell charge card.
A cold always starts small, but before you know it, your cold is full grown. That's when you need Dymatemp.